If you're from my neck of the woods in the beautiful northeast of England, you'll have no doubt heard about Frank.
To find out more, talk to Frank.
No, not that one. Well, maybe. But I meant this Frank.
There you go. 24 stores across the northeast. Frank's the flooring store. I love carpets, me.
And quite honestly, I love pensions, me. But I will be in the minority there. Just look at the comments section for any Facebook post about pensions and you can feel the disdain coming off of it. And you might say, well, yeah, any social media comments section is just a cesspit for people to project their angriness into the void. Granted, I get that. But in my day job, I also get out into the real world, see people face to face. I'm talking schools, workplaces, councils, and I get to get a feel for how people are feeling about pensions and retirement planning. And generally, it's not looking too good. I feel a lot of distrust, a lot of misconceptions are out there, and certainly there's a lack of engagement. People don't really know where they're at with it. How have we got to this point? Whose fault is it? What have we done wrong, and what can we do to fix it? Hi, my name's Andrew, and I love pensions, me. If you're new here, tap that subscribe button for plenty more to come in future. What do you get if you take out a pension plan today? Well, congratulations, you've just got yourself a boatload of paperwork, PDF or otherwise. And if you manage to get past, say, page 5 of this bump of nonsense, you've done pretty well. I think I'd be asleep by then. Realistically, it's an absolute snooze fest. It's arse-covering nonsense designed by the compliance department to keep the pension provider on the right side of any complaints. Let's be realistic. But within that pack, somewhere buried, is an illustration, and people tend to find this. It's got a projection based on the contributions you're making to that pension of what you might get when you get to retirement age. Now, the concept sounds reasonable, right? You'd want that. But if we just let the pension providers make their own numbers up, they're going to have a field day and present, well, things that make them look favourable. So the FCA, in their wisdom, have standardised this, tried to give some rules, a whole bunch of them, around the growth rates, the inflation, the kind of the maths behind the projections that these providers have to use. And the end result looks something like this. Now, in this quick example, I've used myself as the guinea pig. We've got a hypothetical 36-year-old that's going to pay £100 a month net. So that's £125 per month with the tax relief added from the government into a pension between now and them reaching age 68. I've gone with state pension age. Who knows whether it'll actually be that? But that's what we're working with. And what you get on the top line here is a projected amount of what the fund value will be. What amount in pound coins will be in the pot when we get to that age. Underneath it, you've got a conversion, an attempt to put this into an annual income. So what will that pot buy me as an annual income if I were to retire at 68, along with the option of taking the 25% tax-free lump sum at the outset and what that would do to the residual income if I do take that lump sum. All illustrations will look pretty much the same. The format might be slightly different, but they're all in this table style, and we naturally get drawn towards the mid-rate. It's human nature to do so. In this example, we've shown a growth rate of 2.9%. That's what we got out of the illustration system. But you have to actually look a little bit closer at the small print to see that this is over an assumed 2% for inflation. So realistically, it's a 4.9% growth rate, but we are adjusting for today's money. We're trying to put it in figures that make sense in 30 years' time when the cost of everything will have naturally gone up. But the result leaves you feeling massively underwhelmed. I mean, think about it. In this term, this 30 years, I'm going to end up paying in roughly £48,000, including the tax relief. And what? With the mid-rate growth, I'm going to get just over 50,000 in 30 years. I'd be better off just saving into a savings account. And hang on a minute, if I look at the lower growth rate, are you telling me I'm actually going to lose money? That's right, scrap it, cancel the pension, there's no point. I can't tell you how many times we have done the good work that financial advisors should be doing, a holistic financial plan, cash flow forecasts, working out what level of contributions you should be paying, talking up the benefits of tax relief and tax efficient growth, only for the client to take out the pension, receive the pack of bump, and then come back with genuine concern and say, what the hell have you signed me up for here? And look, I sympathise with the pension providers. Their hand has been forced. They've got to provide this information in the standardised format with the rules set by the powers that be in regulation land. And I think that those people think that they're being helpful with this. To be clear, it's not. It's off putting, it's causing disengagement. But I understand it's difficult to give any indication of what a pension might provide you in 10, 20, 30 years' time when you've got so many variables. And this is the real issue with an illustration. It's not actually a specific reflection of what you're going to get. If anything, it's just a maths equation. It's looking at an assumed growth rate and then knocking off inflation and charges. I think providers and the powers that be think we'll use this as some sort of comparison tool between providers to say, well, that growth rate will get me that with them there, and might get this growth rate with this provider. And the reality is, it means nothing. Just look at the total cost of investing with any provider and compare that. It's that simple. But what's far more important than getting hung up on some hypothetical maths equation is the real questions. Am I on track? Am I going to be okay? What age could I retire if I carry on as I am now? What standard of living am I going to have? These are the things that people want to know that help them engage more. I've spoken with people that have taken financial advice, sat down with financial advisors, and still come away not having those questions answered. They might have been told what they've got now. They might know more about the charges or the investment strategy. Who really cares? What they want to know is, am I going to be okay? Am I on track? Is there anything I should be doing over and above what I'm doing now? The traditional pension sales model is still failing people on that basis. And we're already fighting an uphill battle when it comes to pensions because we've had years of negative stories from Robert Maxwell's raid on the Mirror Group pensions to Gordon Brown's impact, Equitable Life, and more recently, you might say Labour's headlines around the quote unquote attack on quote unquote pensioners and the waspy noise that's going around at the minute. I mean, I won't get into specifics of these stories because I don't think it's helpful. But I think we can all agree that it has a negative impact. I meet a lot of people that have a genuine distrust of pensions. I won't touch pensions because of those kinds of stories. Or perhaps they've been subject to a personal scam or mis-selling scandal that's left them with a bad taste around pensions in general. Not to mention that we're just off the back of a budget where the government had people worried about whether they should take their tax-free cash or not, and then HMRC helpfully release a newsletter after the event saying you can't put it back during a cooling period. Thanks, guys, that really helps. But enough with the pessimism, let's get to the good stuff. What can we do about this to help pension engagement in future? Well, I've got 4 concepts. They interlink, and it's crucially held together by the first item, which is the pensions dashboard. Now, like any government project, this has been in the works for some time, delayed, kicked back, but hopefully we're going to see this thing in 2026. And this should, in theory, give you a place to log in online for free and check where your pensions are at. It'll tell you your total pensions and hopefully give you some idea of where you are at. The biggest problem with engagement is that we've got a system that scatters pension pots here and there, and it's hard to keep track of them. People literally lose track of their pensions. That's not good for engagement. So the starting point is to get this free online resource where pension providers are going to feed in this information for you. They'll do the hard work so that you can see what you've built up. That's the absolute crucial starting point. My second point interlinks with that dashboard, and I would plug in the best of technology providers out there. So I'm talking about the government going and doing deals with the best technology companies out there in the financial space to make these tools available for the public. Give them the tools they need to plan their retirements effectively. I, as an advisor, have the benefit of working with some of the most sophisticated quality financial planning and cash flow tools out there in the market, but there isn't a great deal of access to that outside of it. Now, it doesn't need to be that sophisticated on a mass public scale, but what it does need to be able to do is bring in all of your pension pots with that information from the dashboard. I'm talking final salary and defined contribution pots, state pension projections, and bring this into one projection for you and where you're headed. Then allow the user to play around with their retirement age or paying in an extra £100 to a pot style pension, perhaps changing their asset allocation with some guidance on what that means. That ability to play around and engage with the tool is surely going to help people make decisions that are based on more reality and give them a clearer idea of where they're headed. The third point, and again linking in with the dashboard because it makes sense to do this all from one place, would be to bring in the data from the Retirement Living Standards report. I've mentioned it in videos here on this channel previously. It's a great way to get a feel for what the typical retiree or couple needs to live on. What standard of living are they going to have? It gives some descriptive items, like they might have a certain type of car or holiday and this type of thing. What most people struggle with is, okay, I might have a projection for 20 grand a year in retirement or 30 grand a year in retirement. Is that good? Is that going to be okay? Rather than just working through their own figures, at least give them a standardized starting point to benchmark themselves across. I know this is never going to be 100% accurate. I don't expect that to be the case. But giving people this benchmark to say, if you continue on your current trajectory with everything we know here in the dashboard about you, you are likely to have a moderate standard of living in retirement. At least people could use that as a gauge for whether they want to push themselves further or whether they think, yeah, that's fine, I'm on track for a living standard that I feel comfortable with, and that's fine. My last and final point, probably the most important one here, is that I want to see the governments, future governments included, have an agreement that pensions should not be tinkered with. Every time there's a budget, it is treated like a political football, and this most recent budget is an example of how much of a car crash that can be. Stop it. What we want to see is the pillars of what makes a pension a pension. I'm talking tax relief on the way in, tax exempt growth within the pot, 25% tax free cash on the way out, and a clear indication of the age of access without moving those goalposts at a random point. We need those pillars of what makes a pension to stay as they are. That is absolutely crucial for engagement. Thank you for watching. What's your take on pensions? Have you had good, bad experiences? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope today's video was of some value. If it was, if you wouldn't mind tapping that like button, as it does help with the old YouTube algorithm, and I hope to see you for a future video.